Welcome to Idaho Business for Education Zoom Classroom, a place where we talk to prominent thought leaders around learning and education in the age of COVID-19. Today, our guest is Wendy Johnson, the superintendent of the Kuna School District. Wendy, hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So last March, when the schools closed and the students had to go back home to learn, as the superintendent of the Kuna School District, what did you learn from that experience? What were your takeaways?
Oh, there's so many, Rod, that takeaways, but I think the biggest takeaway for us was a reminder of how interconnected our school and our schools are within the community. The amount of services that we truly provide. We provide a safe place for kids to be when their parents are at work. We provide food, we provide health, we provide counseling, we provide all of these services. And in addition to providing a really good quality education. So
Right.
that closure really, it reinforced the interdependency, I think, between our schools and our staff and families and community.
How can we take what, I hear you on that. I mean, the schools are expected to do so many things in our society today. I mean, we used to, our educators used to educate kids. Now there are so many other aspects of what they do for our families and for our kids. So based on what you've learned, I mean, I know you, so I know you knew all those things before, but like you said, the pandemic has amplified that importance.
Absolutely.
So because of that, what do you think? Do you think there's a greater awareness among parents in the community about how important the school is in these different kinds of roles?
Yeah, I do. I think there is a lot greater awareness, and I don't want to think that parents weren't appreciative before, but we've heard lots of communications from parents that have said, anywhere from like, take my kids, I don't want to be their teacher, to really expressing appreciation for all that teachers do. So I think it was good for us to kind of maybe as a reset in our a belief in that connectedness that we have with one another, and the partnership truly between a parent and a teacher, a school and a community. So yeah, those were very much reinforced.
Well,
And
okay.
I think also the other thing that we learned was, and I don't know how many kids are going to want to hear this, is that, a snow day, for example, when we do an emergency closure, we can still educate kids on a snow day and an emergency closure. It may not look the same, but we won't have, in the future, our plan is not to have any time lost, which is a good thing from my perspective. Maybe not a great thing from a student who wants to go skiing that day, but and we're still fine tuning some of those plans, but we're going to be ready. I guess the nice thing with Idaho is we rarely have those kind of emergency closures that maybe other areas in the country have, and so we've learned how to really move our system fairly quickly to accommodate any future closure.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that from your perspective. I know in the early days of the closure, IBE and HP and Kuna School District and other partners like the Chamber and others down in Kuna, we worked together to help you respond to that quickly. What what did you learn from that pilot that we ran very early in this process, and how can you apply that toward what you're going to do come September? Or
Yeah. Well, first of all, I should say thank you to HP and to IBE for helping to help us leverage some of the community resources that we have in the greater Treasure Valley to help get technology to students. And we really do appreciate that, our HP experts came in, helped us out. And what we knew, what we wanted all along, prior to COVID, was we've been working on kind of a one-to-one plan for students. And we have that in our middle school, primarily have that in our high school, but it was our elementary students that we've really had more a classroom model to access technology tools for learning. So with partnerships with our community, being able to rid themselves of old machines that maybe they don't need anymore, but that we can use to get education going for families who may not have tools. We've really made a commitment to get one-to-one, using grants, using donations, using, maybe hopefully some state purchasing power to get some lower cost tools to our kids. So that's our plan moving into next year. So I think that was a good takeaway. And I also think within that, I think I had an old mindset of the computer tool needing to be really high tech.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of what I do and what maybe more high school kind of and middle school kind of teaching looks like. But for our elementary, having a browser, having internet, we could do a lot of things with the instruction that we needed to give and needed to deliver to students.
How are you sitting now for the fall? Are you one-to-one yet? Do the kids have the connectivity that they need? Are you doing some professional development for teachers? What's that look like because we're only hard to believe, and I hate to even say this because I'm sure you don't want me to say this, but we're only about 2.5 months away from school starting.
Yeah. Oh no, I know. We are 10 weeks starting tomorrow for us starting school today. And we've backward designed everything, like what certain measures need to be in place by when in order to be ready for school starting. So we are close to being one-to-one. We're in the process of, like I said, doing some purchasing. We're hoping that the state stimulus money will help us to close that gap. And of course, we're always willing to take more donations to help us with that. Because one of the things that, we're gonna have to put some practices in place because we don't know when we may have to close. And, we're calling it our bug out plan. So if we had to quickly close, we want to make sure our kids have their computers. But we also know kids, we also know people, they forget stuff at home, right? And so we're going to repurpose all of our devices so that they can go home, but that we're still in a need to have some devices at school, some extra devices so that kids can access them while they're at school. And that's another thing that we've done differently. I think our middle school and our high schools have been really good about using their learning management system, their electronic tools, to be able to have kids, integrate their curriculum within the learning management tool. But again, elementary, we just really haven't done that. So our plan, starting very first thing in the fall, we're going to reconnect with kids, continue to develop relationships, and help them just like they learn, maybe how to access their lunch, how to go to the bathroom, how do they wash their hands, all those things in the elementary, those routines that we will teach. We're also integrating how do you access your learning materials, your learning activities, this document that your teacher wants you to do through Google Classroom or another tool that we're using called Schoology. So kids are going to learn that in primarily the elementary because that hasn't been something we've done.
Yeah.
And then reinforce it in the middle school and high schools.
So how are your teachers doing? Do you feel like they need a little bit more professional development? Because, hardly any teacher went through college to learn how to respond in an environment like this, really.
We're really lucky in Kuna to have such awesome teachers. And I have to tell, I have so many great stories of how teachers helped one another to deliver instruction in the emergency way that we were in. But now we want to be much more strategic in next year. So we were, with the help of our board, we took that last week of May, which is scheduled for finals and all of those kind of final celebrations. And we actually stopped instruction, our emergency, instruction. And we used those 4 days to provide professional development to our teachers so that they knew how to access their learning management tools. They knew how to, again, share what they've learned, but then be more strategic as they plan ahead. So we're doing that. We did that in May. We're offering courses and encouraging different courses that are available to our teachers during the summer. And then when fall comes, we're going to fine tune any holes that teachers may have, like I still didn't get this or I need this within their plan for August. And the other thing that, we've always had safety protocols that are a part of what we do, but that's going to be heightened as well, is how do you teach in this environment? Because right now our plan is to have kids come back. Because that was one of the lessons that we learned too, Rod, was parents really depend on us to provide their children their education. It's a partnership between home and school, but really provide their kids a safe place to be so that mom and dad can go to work. And so now that workplaces are opening more and parents are returning to work, we are definitely want to play a role in bringing our kids back to school. How we do that safely is what we're kind of working through right now through various guidance documents. So I think that's a part of our professional development too, is to help our teachers and families feel safe as we learn what the new world's going to be for a while in absence of a vaccine.
So, I heard a lot about parents, parents overwhelmed, like you said, or yay, I'm not a teacher, I don't know what, and then I even heard comments about the standards and how they were, like the new math, I do not understand this new math. Is there a role for the school districts to help parents prepare for the fall too? Especially if we get into another surge and everybody finds themselves at home again.
Yes.
I'm thinking about what you can do to make parents or help parents be more comfortable and as a partner in this.
Absolutely. And I know we did that in pockets and pieces, but what we did, March through May, I would say, I keep calling it our emergency closure instruction plan. It was not strategically thought through. It was more response. And because it was an emergency, in other words, it was our best work given the circumstances, but it wasn't our best work. So we know that anytime we have a change, parents play a huge role in that, whether it's understanding, whether it's how they can help, what they would expect, all of those things. We really we didn't do as good of a job as we normally like to do. So moving forward, we want to capture some of the things that we learned how to do, which is we've learned how to create videos like you cannot believe. And so really tapping into those tools to be able to tell and inform parents of what they can expect when there's a closure. And these are the tools that your students will access. And here's how they access that. The other thing that, again, I don't want to say that we don't need our parents as partners because we rely on them, but one of the big things that we heard is parents being frustrated that I don't know how to help my student. Right. Well, given that we're going to be better prepared as teachers, we're going to be able to do that more so parents don't have to. They need to be able to provide us a quiet place for students to study, to access, the tools through the technology that they have in order to access their teacher. But we're going to be able to provide the digital instruction in a more consistent way moving forward than we were during the pandemic. So, and I also think it is, online education is different. I think some parents expected their student to be online on a computer for 6 hours a day, right. Which that isn't a good practice. When they're face-to-face, totally, because we're doing all sorts of different activities to move kids around, put them in small groups. They're doing, all sorts of activities that don't just involve sitting and staring at their teacher, right? Online, you can't have little ones and even older students sit for 6 hours straight and sit and get. They're not going to learn in that environment. So it might involve a lot of FaceTime, then some independent work, and then coming back and sharing. So we're going to make sure that our parents understand that, and
Yeah.
and so that they know how to make sure their kids aren't getting away with anything, but they know what to expect moving forward.
So it sounds like you're really going to step up communication with parents, and also
Absolutely.
maybe use some new tools like even Zoom or
Yep.
whatever to get the word out on to parents about what to do and what to expect and stuff like that. It sounds like communication is going to be a really important part of what you're doing.
And I think we do a pretty good job of that in my district as a whole, but we really always can do better, but using tools that our parents really want us to use, like texting, for example. Emails, great, but they want, chunks of information because they're busy,
Yeah.
they're busy people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, just when the schools are needed more than ever before, although they're always needed greatly, we're facing this budget crunch because of the economy. So it must be difficult, I would imagine, to prioritize how you approach the next school year because of this. What are your thoughts about what you're thinking in terms of how to weather this economic storm that we're in?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've been through this before, right? Tough economic times. And I think anytime we've had to tighten the belt tighter, going by our values of who we are as an organization, as a community, helps us to make those decisions. So we went through a process of just getting input from our as quickly as we could to kind of set the tone of our how we're going to deal with the budget, and really looked at what is essential for us to be able to keep kids safe, to help them meet their goals, to be able to achieve the learning targets that we have, because our primary business is teaching and learning. And that meant that we may not be able to do some other things. And maybe we don't have the best, response when it comes to maybe human resources, because we've made some reductions in some of those areas, which will have effect on the organization as a whole.
Right.
But really, really tried to focus on teaching and learning and safety within that. We're still working through some of the details with that, but we basically were able to balance our budget. And that kind of goes to, again, our coexistence, our codependency that we have with our community. If there's things that the community could help us with, that of course we would always be willing to take those donations, whether that be time, talents, actual tools, materials, those sort of things that could help us continue to focus on what is primary to us, which is our children.
Yeah.
How do we best keep them safe and still move education forward? Because we also know through our experiences that online education doesn't work great for a lot of families and kids, just given all of the other situations and challenges that families sometimes have. So our hope is that we're going to be able to continue to be face-to-face as much as possible, have online options, and then also, if we have to close, that it can be as short of amount of time as possible so that we can get kids back to learning and working with their teachers who they have strong positive relationships with. So knowing that that's our focus, that's kind of been where our budget reductions and focus has been.
Yeah.
But it's still been hard. Kuna's one of the lower per pupil funded school districts, so we're used to running pretty lean, and so when we have to cut, it makes it very difficult. And every cut that we made has some sort of potential negative impact. So we've tried to minimize those negative impacts, but and kind of made a priority list of things that it should our budget, should money come return, or should our budget not be as bad as we may think, that we'll start to return some of the items that we've paused for a year.
Well, if your constituents, your patrons were on this Zoom classroom call with us today, in closing, what would you say to them if you had a chance to speak to them, and hopefully some will access this?
Yeah.
What would you like to say to them at this juncture?
Well, first, I'd like to thank them for being such great partners, and for doing the very best that they could do to help us be able to better help kids, and to be able to really reinforce that partnership. So, you know, Rod, we've had people turn out donating computers to us. We had people make face masks like you cannot believe for our drivers, for our child nutrition team, for us at the district office. And it just shows how much, how, again, I say interconnected that we are within our community. And I'm really appreciative of time and time again, our community stands up and supports our children. So I'm very appreciative to the community for which I serve.
Well, and also I could, just on a personal note, I would have to say that the community is very lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
You know, we've worked together a lot, and you are a terrific leader, and
Thank you.
you lead both with your head and with your heart. So
Thank you. I hope that's true.
community is very lucky to have you. So Wendy, thank you for being with us today, and thank you all, and please join us for another edition of IBE's Zoom Classroom down the road. Thank you.